Yes, it says WMN Model B on it. But in reality, this thing comes from China and is sometimes marketed as B, sometimes with other names in front of it. Yes, there are 20 shots here as well. And again, it doesn't matter where the black is. What's important is the position of this hole, which you can easily adjust by setting the scope. What's important is that they are as close together as possible, and I think for a rifle that costs around 70, 69, 70 or 79 euros, you can't complain. And you have to look at the whole device within that price range. Don't complain about the rifle. And you have to look at the whole device within that price range. So it's not a high-class rifle. It's the very bottom, and the very bottom of the beginner category in 4.5mm with an F mark, of course. It's a break barrel rifle. Yeah, it's just a break barrel rifle. What more can you really say about it? You break the barrel. And by the way, it's really easy to cock. There's a pellet latch inside. Everything works perfectly. What more do you want? The sights are okay if you're fine with plastic sights and so on. In this price range, we don't want to complain about that. The safety is automatic. And there's a special feature here, which applies to both WMN guns I have here. Namely, the thing automatically secures itself when you cock it. When I first get into position, I pull hard through. Now I'm not pulling hard through at first, but just like this. And then I release the safety, and then the trigger is right at the pressure point. I don't know if it was intentional, but it works. When you normally release the safety and then pull the trigger, you get this scratchy too sound, and eventually there's a little bump, like when you go over a bump, and then you feel an increased resistance, and that's when the shot breaks. So there's a clearly noticeable pressure point, which is of course quite heavy, but it's there. And I find it confusing because when it's in a safe state, you can really feel that scratchiness, and then when you release the safety, you get a really clean, dry trigger pull. That's a bit confusing, yet it feels substantial. I mean, for a cheap shotgun, I think there's a lot of wood on it. You feel like you're getting your money's worth. Yeah, it's just an air rifle otherwise. Again, there's a lot of plastic at the front here, which doesn't really mean anything. It's just there because the competition does it too. A very nice front sight, ultimately. Plastic sights, yeah. I still want to show a few details. Trigger guard. Let's take a look at the trigger guard here. And take a look at the measurements between the trigger guard and the wood. It's okay at a distance, but not so great put on the side. You can tell that the whole thing here, the entire trigger guard, is made of plastic. And it's somehow screwed in here with two different size screws in a recess. The trigger blade is also made of plastic and has a checkered pattern, so it's kind of square. And at least when I pull the trigger here, my finger doesn't hit anything up top. That means the trigger blade doesn't disappear somewhere in the housing. Instead, you actually pull it back. I already like this better than with other devices. Yeah, and that pretty much sums up what we can say about this thing. There's an 11mm dovetail rail on it. I would say I haven't compared enough other rifles to really say if this grouping is exceptionally good. But I would say for $70, if you adjust the sight a bit, almost completely covers this black area here. Now we have 1, 2, 3 outliers in between. Otherwise, that would be a great shot grouping. I don't know where the outliers are coming from. I shot it using a scope, 7 times magnification. That means I can see in the crosshairs that my heartbeat stays within the 12. So it can't really be my fault. And for the money, it's totally fine. I would say, so there's some special labeling on here, like a serial number laser etched, F sign. It'll be 4.5 Emidaya. Well, okay. Yeah, I know. I guess I just want to say what else I should add to that. That's why I'm just not saying anything. But I'm once again pointing out with great emphasis that I'm the guy with the orange hands who has to turn off his camera all by himself. Oh man, oh man, oh man.